For centuries, scientists have been asking questions and striving to answer them. Some of them succeeded. However, up till today, we still don't have a precise answer for the question that has been long asked. Where did we come from, and how did Earth form? The book, A Short History of Nearly Everything, written by Bill Bryson, illustrates or tries to answer this question. In the chapter 5, it discusses the different theories that have been introduced by scientists throughout time. Some of those theories were proven, while others were mere contributions. Here's a brief explanation.
James Hutton was the first to create the science of geology. He suggested that present land previously existed underwater.
He was also the first to raise the issue of the clamshells and other marine fossils that were often found over mountaintops. Thus, there were two groups, namely Neptunus and Plutonus, who had different theories about how fossils appeared. Neptunists were convinced that everything on Earth, including fossils, could be explained by rising and falling sea levels. They also believed that mountains, hills, and other features were as old as Earth itself, and were changed only when slushed over them during periods of global flooding. On the other hand, Plutonists noted that volcanoes and earthquakes continually changed the face of the planet. They believed that Earth was subject to profound internal forces as well as surface ones. However, Hutton, unlike the Neptunists and Plutonists, believed that marine fossils on the mountains had risen along with the mountains themselves. He explained his belief by saying that heat within the Earth, which created new rocks and continents, thrust up mountain chains. In order for this to happen, it took millions of years. Hutton got interested more about in the study in geology. Thus, in 1795, he published his work in 2 volumes. His 3rd volume was published in 1899. Unfortunately, few people understood what he was trying to say. John Playfair, a math professor, was one of them. In 1802, Playfair produced a simplified exposition of the Hutonian principles entitled Illustrations of the Hutonian Theory of the Earth. After understanding Hutton theories, gentlemen started to gather once a month discussing geology. It started in 1807. Surprisingly, educated British men went to the countryside to do what's called a stonebreaker, in which different scientists from different fields discussed new and old theories about geology.
Back in the times of early geology, when people were really trying to find out how the Earth was formed, people were actually divided. They were divided into 2 groups. A group of catastrophists and uniformitarians. Catastrophists believed that this world was developed due to a series of catastrophes. Catastrophes like volcanic eruptions or floods. They were also really convinced by that thought because of Noah's story, the story of Noah in the Bible and his flood. On the other hand, there were the group who were the uniformitarians. Uniformitarians believed that the Earth was formed due to a series of processes. Each process developed slowly after one another over an immense span of time. One of these uniformitarians was the brilliant scientist Lyell, who believed that the Earth's shift was slowly and steady.
As time passed, the geological history came to be divided into 4 main spans of time: the Precambrian, the Paleozoic, the Mesozoic, and the Cenozoic, each of which is divided into around 12 to 20 subgroups called periods. However, after some time, the scientist Lyell came along and made smaller subdivisions called epochs. These epochs were Pleistocene as in most recent, Pliocene as in more recent, Miocene as in moderately recent, and Oligocene as in a little recent. The mission that came after that was trying to fit the rocks to the correct time in history. In the 19th century, geologists could put rocks and fossils in the correct age sequence. However, they didn't know exactly when the time periods were, and they didn't actually know if a skeleton lived 10,000 years ago or more. They all believed that the Earth was old, but no one at all could know how old the Earth was. An attempt made by Dr. Edmund Halley, who suggested that by measuring the total amount of salt in the seas and oceans of the Earth and measure the increased rate each year, we can therefore deduce how long the Earth's oceans have been there, and therefore deduce the Earth's true age. Yet it failed. Another famous scientist named George Louis, the French scientist, suggested that the Earth radiates a certain amount of heat. He said that we could measure the rate of dissipation of heat from coal mines each year, and that way we could have an approximation of how old the Earth is. He even guessed that it was between 75,000 and 168,000 years. However, after some time, Charles Darwin came along, and he suggested that it took approximately 306,662,400 years for a geological process in the south of England to form. Therefore, this must be how old the Earth was. Unfortunately, Darwin removed this from his third edition of his book, as he figured it was inconvenient. All these theories are just estimates of how old the Earth is, but until now, we cannot reach an accurate estimate. Scientists still theorize and prove theses. This will never end because as long as the human race continues, explorations in the field of science will continue as well.
Scientists come and go, suggesting theories that they believe are true. However, the scientists that are able to prove their theories are the ones remembered. Some of those scientists are James Hutton, who wrote the first theories of geology, followed by John Playfair, who simplified Hutton's theories. Later came Lyell, contributing to the science of geology by supporting the catastrophes. Afterwards came George Lewis, suggesting that Earth radiates a certain amount of heat each year, and by measuring this heat, we can find out how old it is. Also, Kelvin suggested that the Earth's age ranged from 20 million to 400 million years. Nowadays, we hypothesize that Earth formed 4.5 billion years ago.